We are now entering this multi-AI era where no longer is a sophisticated organization just using Copilot. They're using all these different pieces. A lot of security teams are struggling with not even the fancy, crazy, sophisticated AISPM type stuff. It's the simple AI that's new in their environment, that's embedded. I need to not trust that agent. I need to even not trust the user prompting. I need to also not trust the cloud architect, apply zero trust to that entire chain. And the reason being, data.
With AI, that horse has left the barn.
The market's over pivoted on AISPM. We've seen great visibility. They know every piece of their AI system, but they really have no way of preventing that agent from going off the rails. Can I look at all the AI?
Yeah.
Both the stuff that I built, the stuff that I'm going to build, and the stuff I don't even know about.
Building an AI security program is not just about buying an AISPM. It has so much more that goes into building an AI security program. I had a conversation with Sean Hayes from Varonis where we spoke about what does it take to build an AI security program, what are some of the components that you need to look into, and the stages that you go through as you build the AI security program itself. We also spoke about what does it mean to have identity, third parties that connect into your AI ecosystem, and what does data security perhaps could look like if you were to start building an AI security program today. If you know someone who's working in this particular space on building an AI security program, definitely share this episode with them. As always, if you have been listening or watching episodes of the podcast for a while and have been finding it valuable, I would really appreciate if you take a quick second to hit the follow, subscribe button. We're on all podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and LinkedIn. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps us spread the word to many more people to enjoy the episode and the work we do over here. And also thank you to everyone who came and said hello to me at RSA. It was great to finally meet a lot of you and also hear about the love and support you had for the podcast. Really appreciate that. And I look forward to seeing you again at another conference or event soon as well. Enjoy this conversation with Sean, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace. Hello and welcome to another episode of Cloud Security Podcast. I've got Sean with me. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, glad to be here. Glad to be here.
Could you share a bit about yourself, your background, so people have some context about you, man?
Yeah. So I first started working, at least in cybersecurity, working for a Microsoft consulting company. We were predominantly working within the defense industry. So those organizations, commercial businesses, not the federal government, but commercial businesses that are supplying goods or services to the Department of Defense or even in aerospace industries. So think Boeing, Northrop Grumman, those types of organizations, and helping them configure their Microsoft 365 tenant and their Azure environment to meet CMMC requirements, which is basically audit dependent. And then I was doing that for about 6 years. And then after that time, I joined Microsoft for 3 years, where I was predominantly working on go-to-market for all the various components of the Microsoft 365 and Azure stack. So think Intra, Purview, Defender, Sentinel, etc., but verticalized. So in healthcare, state and local government, financial services, manufacturing, that type of thing. And then I joined Varonis. And so I've been at Varonis going on about 1 year and 8 months, almost about to hit the 2-year mark. And my responsibilities is I'm on the product marketing team, specifically working on our Microsoft applications. So how Varonis secures data in Microsoft 365 and in Azure. And then also with the introduction of Atlas, which I'm sure we'll get into in some way, shape, or form, is I'm also the PMM for our AI security solutions.
So just on the adoption of AI security then, because clearly you're spending a lot of time in there. What are some of the components that you find that people have for AI security capabilities in the enterprise typically?
Yeah.
And what are some of the blind spots?
Yeah, so I think the biggest challenge right now that I'm seeing, well, I shouldn't say the biggest, there's like a couple of big ones. It's hard to pick a favorite. It's like picking my favorite kids. But one of the challenges that I'm seeing is a lot of organizations have looked to solve we'll call it at a broad lens, the AI security challenge by purchasing maybe a particular solution to solve the AI security challenge for a type of AI. And then as they mature, they find that solution they bought or that they're looking to buy doesn't meet the entirety of the AI that they have, or maybe the AI they're going to have, because maybe they're in a crawl, walk, run phase. And so they've started with Copilot. They have a beta test group. They have some sort of initial test group that's rolling out Copilot, but then all of a sudden they realize, to solve the certain challenges we want to solve, we need to start making agents to do certain things. So then they roll out Copilot Studio, but then they realize, the same solution or tool that we procured or that we're using only looks at prompts and responses in Copilot. It doesn't cover this agentic AI framework and how do we secure that? And we don't have guardrails around how those agents are functioning. And so, nevertheless, that's one area that I'm seeing. And so, when they deploy these solutions, they're realizing they're kind of like reaching the end. So, that's one piece of it. The other piece of it, I think, that is concerning for a lot of folks is they have agents deployed in different solution areas. I'll use Jira, for example.
Yeah.
So Atlassian just announced for Jira that they now have an agentic ecosystem. So much like in Salesforce, you can make agents with Agentforce that's grounded on Salesforce data. And those agents could do certain things within the Salesforce environment on Salesforce data. Well, now Jira has that same type of capability with their agents. And so what I think organizations are struggling with is, okay, we had Copilot down, like I said, that beta test group. But then now all of a sudden we have to understand how those agents are accessing data in Jira. And then I also have to understand how agents are accessing data in Salesforce. And how you access data in those different places are extremely different. In Salesforce, it's maybe like records as it relates to accounts and CRMs and things of that nature. And then when you go into Jira, it's based off projects. And when you look at Microsoft, it's based off intra security groups and teams groups and all of these things. Permissions look distinctly different in all these different places. And ultimately, these agents, what they can do, how they access data, is based off of, in most cases, received tokens, like who you are, like what you can access in terms of data. That agent is only going to access the stuff you have access to in Jira, in Microsoft 365, in Salesforce, all these places.
Yeah.
And a lot of security teams are struggling with not even the fancy, crazy, sophisticated AISPM type stuff with custom pro code agents built with Microsoft Foundry or AWS Bedrock. It's the simple AI that's new in their environment that's embedded. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think it's kind of like the open clause of the world or any of the other insert new AI tool that gets released and suddenly everyone wants to adopt it.
Yeah.
It's those cases are probably the ones which are a bit more hairy in this context.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And do you find that obviously a lot of people have different kinds of use cases? You kind of mentioned a few, but you mentioned the Jira use case, you mentioned Copilot, because I'm thinking also this in third party as well. These third parties using AI capabilities or having AI capabilities. Is that also being considered, or are there any other blind spots there too?
Yeah, so let's go down the third-party path. I think there's two issues there too. There's the connector ecosystem, and I'm going to go say them and come back to them. There's the connector ecosystem. Then there is the introduction of pro code custom AI solutions built with third-party platforms and using third-party elements within an AI system. And what I mean by that is like, grabbing a model. So you can be using Microsoft Foundry, but you're bringing in a model that is not a Microsoft model. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or it's an agent built with Microsoft Foundry, but it's using an MCP server as a part of whatever that agent is doing and how it's configured. It's bringing that MCP server from somewhere else, right? So let's go back to the connector thing. There's two challenges. The connector ecosystem is what I like to call it, which is if you look at just Copilot Studio. I'm an ex-Microsoft guy, so we'll have a lot of Microsoft examples here. But within Microsoft 365 Copilot and also with agents created in Copilot Studio, they now have a very robust connector ecosystem where I can use Copilot, not even anything really crazy like an agent made with Microsoft Foundry, but I can use Copilot, but connect it to Salesforce. We were talking about Salesforce earlier. I can connect it to Salesforce. So now Copilot, which is a RAG AI system, is able to not only look at my emails and files in SharePoint, but it's also able to go and query against Salesforce data.
Yeah.
And, it goes back to what I said earlier about can access in Salesforce. Well, now Copilot is following that same can access model. So what can I see in Salesforce? It's going to serve to me in Copilot if I turn that connector on. And that's just a connector, not a highly configured, sophisticated pro code AI solution. So that's a third-party risk that's introduced by just connecting to a new data source that a no-code, off-the-shelf AI solution can use.
Sounds like this, because you mentioned AISPM, you mentioned third-party as well.
Yeah.
So are there like a lot of categories within, because I imagine obviously we're an RSA and
a lot of CISOs and security leaders are walking around thinking about what my security programs going to look like for, I won't say next 5 years, but let's say 6 months or maybe 2026.
Yeah.
Just because how AI works. At the moment, the industry, obviously, CISOs who are walking on the floor, sort of RSA, they're looking at AI security as something that they probably want to care. They want to take care of in their organization.
Mm-hmm.
They obviously have multiple things to look at.
Yeah.
There is the AISPM category you spoke about. There's third party risk we spoke about.
Yeah.
What are some of the other kind of categories that need to think about from a security program perspective if they are trying to focus on AI security?
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of ties into your question earlier about the third party pieces.
Yeah.
Because there's typically the CISOs that I talk to, the organizations, depending on if they're maybe in a regulated industry, typically state and local government can sometimes be behind on the adoption curve, not by intent. In many cases, a lot of their users and even their technology leaders want to adopt AI faster, but there's procurement cycles, there's regulatory frameworks that they have to comply with, and so it's a little bit more sensitive. But nevertheless, all the organizations that I talk to and the CISOs that I meet with, they typically fall into one or two camps. They are in that early stage with the Copilot beta group, or maybe they've rolled out Copilots all their users, but they are not developing and building AI solutions, agents, things of that nature. But then the other half, if you will, that are in other industries, they already have multiple different agents. They have different business units that are also developing. And this gets into your question, though, which is what makes up a AI security platform? Obviously, I'm biased. We just announced Varonis Atlas. And in that platform specifically, we, at the very beginning, when we launched that solution, we wanted to make it clear that there's pretty much 8 distinct areas that you want to look at. I'll hit on several of them. We talked about inventory, or we've touched on it, but you want to have observability of every layer of the AI stack or system. So we want to be able to see what are all the models we have in our environment. We want to see what MCP servers are in our ecosystem. We want to see what agents we have. We want to see what services we're using. We're wanting to look at code repositories that are being called. We want to see, even within the code repositories, are they calling, let's say, a Jupyter notebook? And does that Jupyter notebook have secrets in it? Because some developer wanted to make it easy on themselves and they threw in secrets within that particular notebook. We want to see all of those things, and we want it to continuously be refreshed. So that's just one area.
Yep.
And that is one thing too, and we may hit on it later, is there is a lot of native solutions that are starting to hit the market within different places. You look at Agent 365, most recently announced at Ignite. We were at Ignite not too long ago. It is, at least by design, makes it super easy to see some of that inventory for the Microsoft stack, super easy. But then once you start getting outside of it, there's a little bit more configuration and manual work to try to bring in any of that.
Yeah.
So you don't want to have just something that's exclusively looking at just that, because what we find in those organizations I was talking about is that they're not exclusive. They're not using just one AI vendor, if you want to call them that.
And not only Microsoft agents as well.
Right. And a lot of times it's divided by the organization. They'll have a business unit or a department trying to solve a problem, and so they pick what's best for them to solve that problem.
Yeah.
So if it's Claude, if it's AWS Bedrock, if it's this model, if it's a model from Hugging Face, wherever it's coming from, they just want to solve the problem. They want to pick the tools that best solve the problem. And so then you get a very diverse ecosystem, and you want to have inventory over that entire ecosystem, not just a sliver. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's one piece.
Yeah.
I told you there's
That's the first of many.
I told you there's A, but did you have any questions on that?
No. I think it's a good one, because I guess the foundational piece, so if you can't see them, you can't protect them, kind of a thing comes into picture when I hear up inventory. And I'm sure we'll double click on this as well, but yeah, keep continuing.
Yeah. And one last thing on that. I think we're in a moment of, if you recall, gosh, like 20 years ago, it's crazy to think in terms of 20 years ago, but 2 decades ago up to about 10 years ago, so not the last 10 years, but the 10 years prior to the last 10, we went through this multi-cloud phase.
Oh, yeah.
So if you were at RSA, I was not, candidly, but if you were at RSA 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 16 years ago, every booth had something about multi-cloud.
Yeah.
And the reason being is because you had organizations lifting and shifting different data sources for the first time ever into this place and that place and this place and that place. And they didn't know how to protect and secure this place and that place and that place in the cloud. And it was a new paradigm. It created new threat vectors. It created new risk factors.
Yeah.
And so you had all these multi-cloud solutions hitting the street to solve that multi-cloud problem.
Yeah.
I think we are now entering this multi-AI era where no longer is an organization, an enterprise, sophisticated organization, just using Copilot. They're using all these different pieces. And so that's why inventory is one of the biggest areas, is because you need to see it all. It's not just one AI solution.
Yeah.
You need to see it all, and it needs to be accommodate for where people are building things and what they're building with.
And that's where the whole shadow AI thing comes in as well, that people are concerned about.
Absolutely.
Right? Because to your point, you may use a native agent studio to identify any Microsoft created agents, perhaps, but then you have, I don't know, another open claw gets released. That's just wild on the internet at that point in time. Someone uses it, that would not even come in the radar at that point then.
Right. And that's a key piece you hit on. We were talking about third party, and this is one of the 8, so I'm checking them off as we go. But with third party risk management, AI third party risk management, one of the key pieces of Atlas is being able to pull in the AI bill of materials of the AI that your third parties are using as a service to you. So if it's maybe, I'll give you an example. We have an AI solution called Athena. And Athena AI is basically a SOC assistant that is AI embedded into the platform that you can use to query against Varonis stuff, if you will, to serve information up to you by way of a prompt and a response, right? Well, that AI has a bill of materials. It has a model it's using. It has different components that are grounded in maybe the customer's data, whatever the case may be, and we make sure to lock that down, secure that to where we're meeting also privacy standards, that type of thing. But you have Grammarly. Let's say you're a writer, for any of the writers that are going to watch this later. You're using Grammarly. Well, Grammarly has a bill of materials. They have a model they're using. And so it's critical for you when you're using these third-party solutions that have AI embedded in them, or you're using their agent, that they give you those, because much like if our team, we have a business unit that just developed this agent, it's got a bill of materials, it's got models that it's using, we would want to know if that model has a vulnerability associated with it. Like basically in the NIST National Vulnerability Database, if there's a CVE associated with that model and we're using it for our agent, we would want to know that. But similarly, if I'm using Grammarly and maybe something that's not as well known, but I'm using some other software that has AI in it, I would want to know their bill of materials. So if they're using a model that has a CVE associated with it, that I can basically turn that service off for a time until that, CVE, I know for a fact that they've addressed that. So maybe they're using a different model now, or whatever the case may be. So that's just like one example why third-party risk management is a key piece of any AI security program within an organization, as well as like a platform, the technology.
Do you find that a bill of material specifically for AI? Because there was a whole, I think some time ago, there was an executive order to have bill of material for application libraries you were using.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's more about similar ask for AI. The question obviously is more along the lines of, this helps you from a third-party risk management to identify what vulnerable LLM model I may be using. But I think to what you're saying, it goes back to the shadow AI piece as well.
Yeah.
And that makes you understand that, hey, this is what we should be seeing.
Yep.
And then anything outside of that to go to what you said, is shadow AI.
Exactly.
So if anything else comes up in that space, like I'm kind of able to tie that back to visibility. And say that, oh, okay, now I understand that this is my bill of material, which will be constantly updated. But just on the updated part, is it possible today for us to be, I don't know, have like real-time information of what the AI bill of material would be? Is that technically possible?
Yeah.
Or is it just more like hey, someone would manually keep updating it?
Yeah, there's various ways that you can get visibility into the different AI components, and as their use changes, as their behavior changes, and also to what they're comprised of changes. An example of that is, once you have registered after you've registered Microsoft Foundry within Varonis Atlas, or even just your Azure instance, your subscription, anything that anybody builds in that instance is going to show up, or any existing agents that are within that subscription. Any changes, they add certain components, that's going to be added to the map. So you can see exactly which pieces, parts have been added, because as you add new things, which is why continuous scanning is a big piece of it, which gets into AISPM, is as you introduce new things into the environment, you want to be able to see those and see what risks that may have introduced by adding a component.
Yeah.
You added an MCP server over here. Well, now it's calling certain tools. Oh, well, that tool's poisoned. So we need to, disconnect that connection point between that and the MCP server, whatever API is being called. We want to cut that off, or we want to remedy that so it doesn't call that tool because that tool's poisoned now.
Right. But do you find that the database approach, because the data is an interesting one, right? Because a lot of people, and I'm probably guilty of this as well, even when I was CISO, where we had data classification, it was no rubber never hit the road, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Like there was no easy way for me to identify how exposed I was before. And I think maybe because the understanding was if it's confidential data, it would just not leave it would not leave the boundaries of my organization. But now with AI, we are that horse has left the barn, for lack of a better word. Do you find that what's the advantage of using a data-driven approach for an AI ecosystem?
Yeah.
Versus say, because a lot of people who would have been enterprise and building for a while, they have parameters that they're based on identity, network, they're all these other components. So are we saying this is a complementary thing to it, so start building on top of it? Or is this more like, hey, you almost need to have this as like a parallel because of the ASS ecosystem?
Yeah, you definitely have to implement with a data security platform. And that's not just predicated on me being at Varonis. And the reason being is because there's different AI. There's two reasons, really.
Hey.
It kind of goes back to my initial conversation of different types of AI are just going to be what they can access. Their RAG AI. So they're only going to be able to access what you have access to because there's a token exchange. I know it's you.
Yeah.
You're the one that's prompting me. And thus that's how I'm going to ground my response to you by token exchanges and knowing identity and metadata about you and what you can access.
Yeah.
All of that's being exchanged by identity providers and various calls. I can only access what I can access by way of this agent, by what I can access to data. So that's why data security is important there.
Yeah.
But then on the pro code side, we need to be able to kind of apply zero trust to everything. And what I mean by that and why it relates to data is we want to look to see if, let's say I'm in healthcare, there are certain instances where I want to ingest, because I have a patient-facing agent, I want to be able to ingest sensitive data. But then once I do that, and maybe it updates a record in a database, or I do something where a tool and an agent is going to do that, take that sensitive data, put it somewhere. I need to not trust that agent. So I need to be monitoring how it's handling that sensitive data. I need to even not trust the user prompting to see, like yes, it's supposed to ingest sensitive data, but embedded in that sensitive data, I don't want it to be jailbreaking the solution.
Yeah.
And so I want to not trust the user in the prompt as it relates to data.
Yeah.
I want to not trust the agent that's supposed to then be maybe updating a record somewhere. I need to also not trust the cloud architect that's over that maybe SQL database that's sitting in Azure. I want to apply zero trust to that entire chain. And the reason being data, because I don't want that maybe that architect, that Azure architect, for that user to have compromised identity.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden data is exfiltrated that way. I want to make sure that that Azure instance is locked down. There's not just normal, boring, run-of-the-mill cloud vulnerabilities there and misconfigurations where that data could leak out there. I want to make sure that I don't trust that agent, and because I don't want data to somehow leak out.
Yeah.
And I also want to not trust the prompt interface and that user, that they're trusted and that they're never going to try to do anything malicious to get sensitive data out. So that's just like one example of why data security and AI security are so in tandem and might possibly even intertwined in certain cases.
Is it also because there's not much trust on the AI being used as well? Because is this an exercise to build trust on the AI? Because to what you said, I don't know how much can I control OpenAI or Claude or whatever else, but what I can control is on my side of the world. And data is just data, and identity seems to be the two pieces that come to mind. Is identity playing a role in there as well?
Yes, absolutely. So much of it is predicated on identity. And in Microsoft, to their credit, on Agent 365, they make it super easy if you're building in the Microsoft ecosystem. And part of why it is easy is because identity is very uniform there. When an agent gets created in Copilot Studio, Microsoft Foundry, immediately an agent ID is created, and that agent ID will show up in Agent 365, and you can manage and monitor identity-related vectors there. Super simple.
Yeah.
But then once you start introducing other systems, other agent ecosystems, other developer platforms within that, then identity gets a little bit more complicated, both on the builder side, the agents, the identities they have. All of a sudden, you're evoking so many different identities. You got identities for the folks that can access data in the cloud store or resource that's being called.
Yeah.
You have the identity of the agent. You have identity of the builders, like the people making these agents that have access to these agents on the development side.
Yeah.
You have, if they're using some sort of like Bitbucket, GitHub, you have identities for those that can have access to the code repos. It's like there's an identity layer woven throughout, which is why also too, you need an ITDR solution on each of those things. So when identities start to be maybe like additional entitlements get added to a user that is again a cloud architect. So this is like run-of-the-mill identity stuff, not even crazy AI stuff, but you need to have ITDR or maybe like a KIM solution, CIEM, for identity and entitlement management in your cloud resources. Again, run-of-the-mill boring identity stuff to alert on any type of elevated privileges, moving laterally, logging in from weird locations, all that normal boring identity stuff on the cloud repo, but then also I apply ITDR, threat detection on identities for the agent. Same thing. An agent all of a sudden getting privileges, entitlements that it shouldn't, or an agent all of a sudden accessing things that it typically doesn't, or, an agent all of a sudden lighting up, maybe it's been stale and it hasn't necessarily been using a certain resource, but all of a sudden now it's feverishly, logging in and authenticating and using authorizations that it typically wouldn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, it's identity everywhere as well.
I think a lot of people, every time I've had this conversation with people, they say, I have an E5 license or an E7 license and I'm kind of covered, or why not just other native services that we have? Doesn't really matter what the cloud provider is.
Yeah.
Are they not enough to have data and identity being managed? Because I think they all have, because the data security option, identity security option.
Yeah.
Where do they fall behind?
Yeah. Let me give you an example. So in healthcare right now, it's projected that OCR within HHS, that they're going to update some of the HIPAA requirements. Okay. I doubt they're actually going to hit that mark. The government's going through an interesting time as it relates to regulation just in the States. I know you're not based in the States, but I'll use a US reference here. But so HIPAA, if they put out a notice of proposed rulemaking that they were going to change HIPAA, and part of it is that they're going to now require these healthcare organizations to provide evidence of how they're protecting PHI, not only in cloud systems, but also within these AI systems that's tapping into the same protected health information. If you're going to do that, you're not going to be able to show that inventory I talked to you about. You're not going to be able to show the posture management you're applying to all these different components of the AI system, which is diverse and has a broad ecosystem that's not just, Microsoft or Azure or whatever. It's very diverse. And so you're not going to be able to provide that inventory. You're not going to be able to provide that posture management to meet that regulations to say, hey, we are protecting PHI, protected health information that's sitting in these things and being used by these agents. And here's how we're doing it. Here's how we're protecting it. You're not going to be able to show guardrails that's preventing. I gave you an example of ingesting PHI. Well, maybe I don't want that agent to give protected health information. And so I need an output guardrail to prevent that from happening. You're not going to be able to have that guardrail on all these other things that you've built, because at least I'll use Microsoft as an example. You may have labeled PHI in your Microsoft 365 tenant. They're going to do a great job if it's labeled with DLP policies to prevent that data from exfil, right?
Yeah.
But then once you start getting outside of that parameter and you start looking at an agent that was built in AWS Bedrock and it's tapping into other, maybe an EHR system, like an electronic health record system, and it's calling that by way of an MCP server, whatever the complicated scenario is, you need to also, for HIPAA's sake, let's forget about breaches and those types of things, but just from a HIPAA standpoint, to avoid a fine, you're going to need to be able to show OCR or some auditor, hey, we've protected this, we put the right configurations in place to make sure PHI is not going to be able to be exposed by way of this agent we built in AWS Bedrock. So to answer your question, native tools are really good about solving some of the native challenges. But then once you start broadening the scope and the aperture, that's when it gets a little tough.
And I guess most enterprises are not just using one, even though they might think they're a Microsoft shop. They may have, it doesn't need to be like an Amazon or Google as well. It just could be like a third-party AI agent as well.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Like my Grammarly example, which gets into another thing too that is going to be tough for like a native solution is, at least with Atlas, we're tapping into network telemetry. We're rolling out new features as it relates to browser activity. So you're going to need to see activity not only on the AI which AI can be shadow AI.
Yeah.
That's a topic. We'll put a bookmark in that.
Yeah.
But not just the AI but the AI you don't know that's being used, and being able to flag it based off looking at what's happening over the network, looking at what's happening on the browser and on certain endpoints, being able to bring in all of that. So that way you can sit down and have a conversation with that user or that business unit and not be the department of no, but enable them in a way to say, hey, we can use this, but we need to possibly add this to our inventory, or hey, you're using this. ChatGPT is a good example. Hey, you're using this. We have ChatGPT Enterprise. Can you just use this? Same solution. It's not going to change your workflow, but just authenticate into ChatGPT Enterprise and start using this instead of your public ChatGPT account, as like an example.
Yeah, but it's all this makes me think that people have it could be an overwhelming sense of how many options they have to consider they got on the path of AI security today.
Yeah.
If I were to just ask you, let's say let's focus only on Copilot for a second.
Yeah.
If I were to build a governance plan for Copilot, what would be some of the things I should consider for Microsoft Copilot? And how should I approach? Because a lot of people obviously have that born by default. They may not even know the gaps that are there. If I just had that as a component of an AI component that I use at the moment, because that comes with my license or whatever, how would I approach governance plans for that?
Yeah, so I think it goes back to, I think, your other question about, is AI security, data security related?
Yeah.
To create a governance plan just for Copilot, I think you need to have something that's looking at all the data that Copilot can access. So if that is just grounding on Microsoft 365 and that tenant, then you need to understand what data you have in your tenant. So getting in very rudimentary beginning stages, understand what data you have, understanding if and how it's being classified, and is that successful, testing that, seeing whether or not you've actually classified all the data in your environment. Understand also new data. So I talked about existing data, who has access to it, and is it classified or not? What sensitive information types do you have?
Yeah.
I would say also, is it labeled? But then new data, how is new data going to be classified, and is it going to be labeled? And then lastly, how is Copilot using that data? So knowing the data, knowing who has access to it, knowing how new data is being classified and labeled, and then how AI is going to be using that data. I think those are three key tenets. And then lastly, kind of applying zero trust from a monitoring perspective. Yeah. So once you've right-sized permissions, you've classified all the data, you're going to be classifying and labeling new data and setting the right access controls on new data. Then also too, we need to have zero trust on those users and how Copilot behaves, and make sure that even if we've set everything up as perfectly as we can, that we have something looking at how Copilot is interacting with data from a runtime perspective.
All right. And actually, is this where we go into the whole runtime, in the prompt injection, all that? Is that where the component comes in?
Yeah. So we're going to leave Copilot for a second.
Yeah.
That's a good, I think it's a good starting point for most companies that are in that, hey, we're just using Copilot. I want to have some sort of governance plan for Copilot. But when we start looking at other agentic solutions, so like my healthcare example, well, I'm building an agent with AWS Bedrock. It's calling MCP servers and doing these other things to serve up something. Maybe it's an agent that's used for billing within a healthcare service provider organization. And so I want to pull up patient records where we have late billing and why, and what were the services created, and give me information about those patients. And maybe there's certain things that we need to do to extend different types of services to those patients that still meets their needs, but doesn't necessarily require them to have a type of insurance or whatever the case may be. I want to have some sort of learning and an agent that helps me understand patient outcomes along with billing. And I want to, tie those things together, and I have some sort of agentic system built for that. you are not going to be able to, even with the best AISPM tool and solution, know for 100% certainty that that agent is never going to have a vulnerability or some sort of hallucination, or it's never going to expose sensitive data, no matter how it's prompted. So you need to do some type of pen testing ahead of time on that agent. You need to put it through the ringer, so to speak, and put it on the ropes to test to see what is it actually going to do in real time. Both from a jailbreaking, poisoning, all of those things, but also very run-of-the-mill interactions to see how it's going to behave to just normal prompting to see if it's going to expose sensitive data, or it's going to be very vulnerable and exposed for jailbreaking or whatever the case may be. So there's that. And then lastly, set up guardrails. So if you know that, oh, this agent possibly has a tendency to do certain things, and you want to block it from doing those certain things, then guardrails are another way to prevent an agent from going kind of off the rails.
So what components should people consider? I'm going back to the CISOs walking the show floor on RSA, who's building an AI security program. What would you say? Because I love the example you gave for the Copilot pieces, the 3 stools of the chair, if you want to call them, I guess. In terms similar to that, in a security program, where should they start today at minimum? And what would some of the maturity stages would look like as they kind of hit different milestones?
I'd say 2 biggest components, and maybe as I talk, I'll come up with a third. The 2 biggest things as you're talking to other individuals on the floor at RSAC, or really as you leave RSAC and you go home and you follow up with some of these other possibly providers, is all AI. Can it cover all the AI that I have already built, that I am going to be building? You talked about 2026 and 2027. Even if you do not have current AI that you have built with other different parts of the ecosystem, the AI ecosystem, can it protect all AI that I've built today, that I plan to do, that I plan to build tomorrow? Is it suitable for that? Can I protect all of the various elements of AI and shadow AI that you keep bringing up too? Can I look at all the AI? Both the stuff that I built, the stuff that I'm going to build, and the stuff I don't even know about. So can I see all AI? That's number one. The second thing, is this platform going to be able to apply to the entire AI lifecycle? Meaning from inception, so inventorying all of the things that I have, from AISPM, securing it continuously, from pen testing it like we talked about, and then once it goes live, can I apply guardrails to it to block certain behaviors? From a compliance standpoint, can I regularly see, hey, as I change things or add things, or as this agent continues to move and work and do things for me, is it going to impact my compliance risk? How have I applied, maybe the NIST AI RMF to this particular agent? And as it changes, is it still compliant? And then also too, looking at, third-party risks, things of that nature, and being able to do monitoring on all of it continuously. So again, all AI, all life cycle. So not just at the beginning, not just doing AISPM, but also too being able to do the other pieces throughout the entire life cycle, all the way to the time you turn that agent off. Sad day, but you turn it off.
Is there a wrong metric people focus on? Because a lot of people may have already purchased an AI security program. They watch and listen to this conversation and go, oh, I didn't really plan for the other part. What's the wrong metric that people end up focusing on sometimes that you find for AI security?
A big one is on visibility in AISPM. We have seen this too in the data security space, where there was an overemphasis and a huge pivot on DSPM. So Varonis, as a part of the data security platform, provides DSPM to customers. But then there's also other pieces of the data security approach and platform and strategy that are not just DSPM. And so when you limit yourself to just AISPM, so just configurations and vulnerabilities, things that are very important and good, you lose some of the things like guardrails, like actually blocking the agents from doing bad things, pen testing, things of that nature. So that's one area where I think the industry or maybe the market's over pivoted on AISPM, or put an elevated emphasis on AISPM, which it is key. It's a huge component, but there's that. The other piece of it is visibility. In many cases, we've seen where an organization may have great visibility. They have inventory. They know every piece of their AI system, but they really have no way of preventing that agent or AI system from going off the rails.
Yeah.
So that's a big one.
Do you find that the example you gave earlier for the 3 sets of things people can focus on when they build an AI security program, what are some of the milestones that people can consider as they progress from one maturity to another? Like perhaps you just only look at Copilot only in the beginning, but because to what we said, it's not just Copilot today. There's like third party, then there's the Salesforce of the world or Jira of the world have AI. And do you find in the customers you guys talk to, is there an easier one to tackle first so that it doesn't feel like you're trying to, I don't know, chew an elephant for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
all in one go?
Yeah. I would say it's got to be the inventory and the AISPM piece. I told you earlier that we're overemphasizing and over pivoting on those areas.
Yeah.
However, it is a good place to start.
Yeah.
I don't want to dismiss the fact that it's a great place to start for organizations. Just knowing what you have is such a key piece of it, because then all the AISPM pieces of it as well. Once you know what you have, you can start to look at where are misconfigs, where are vulnerabilities, those types of things, which AI system you have or agent you have, and even just with Copilot or ChatGPT Enterprise, being able to do that. If you do not have expectations, maybe my state and local government friends that are watching this, you have no ideas of grandeur that you're going to be rolling out any kind of agentic AI besides Copilot or besides ChatGPT Enterprise. I think it goes back to one of your questions earlier, which is, what data do I have? Is it being classified and protected in some way, shape, or form? Because a lot of these agents that are RAG AI, my Jira example, Copilot, ChatGPT Enterprise, it's going to be grounded in what your users can already access. So I think having some sort of data security platform to look at that, to right-size access in all those different places that AI may crop up, and maybe it's shadow AI you don't even know about. But as long as you're right-sizing access to the data in those places, in many cases, this out-of-the-box AI, Copilot, in many cases, it's going to not misbehave, and your users aren't going to be able to abuse it or misuse it, as long as you've right-sized data. So if you're looking at more complicated pro code, complex AI systems, then I would say good place to start, inventory AISPM, before you get into pen testing and guardrails and compliance and monitoring and those types of things, just starting there. But then if you're looking for a starting place for just Copilot or ChatGPT Enterprise or Gemini, right-sizing data access in those places and getting a hold on that, because at the end of the day, what that agent is going to, or excuse me, what that RAG AI solution is going to be able to access is going to be bound to what that user can access.
I love this. So considering there is also this uncertainty, because I love the example you had earlier where it's not just the AI that we have in 2026, but 2027, and perhaps even after that as well. Because obviously we can't predict where 2027 AI, or what would that look like. But at least are there controls that people can rely on from a long-term defense perspective against AI, which would probably stand the test of time for whatever comes up next? And that could be because I think so far we've spoken about the identity layer, we spoke about the data layer, and other people are like, hey, is any of this going to last be a test of time, or should I focus on the interconnectivity, or should I focus on third party? Or which one of these are you banking on as something that would go beyond just the 6 months to the 2026 mark, I guess?
I think it's we've kind of done it in this conversation where we've talked about identity, data, et cetera. I think there's going to be a little bit of a renaissance, not just in the zero trust, because I've been hitting on that. That's a buzzword that's been around for quite some time. I think it's more than a buzzword, but still, it's been around for quite some time. I think you're going to see somewhat of a renaissance of these older ideas and concept like defense in depth potentially. Because, who knows when we're going to have quantum, and all of a sudden now the cryptography that we use for all different types of things may be crackable. And so you're going to need to have different pieces and parts to, apply zero trust and have some sort of defense in depth strategy. So it's going to require all these pieces. Now, I will say this, an analogy that I have started to use now that we're tapping into old things like zero trust and defense in depth and applying it to new things. I don't necessarily know, because you're from Australia originally, from India, then Australia, then the UK. Anchorman? Familiar with the film? Okay.
Ron Burgundy.
So Ron's going to read anything that's on the teleprompter, right? Like, even if it's profanity, even if he's saying, I'm Ron Burgundy, he's going to read what's on the teleprompter. In many cases, the AI that we have today, and maybe it's changed, maybe it's going to get to a point where we reach general intelligence or something to that effect. But at least the AI we have now, and maybe for the next 5 years, who knows? AI is Ron Burgundy. It's only going to read what's on the teleprompter.
Yeah.
And so if we're looking at identity solutions and data security, identity security and data security solutions, it's like, how are we going to make sure that the right data shows up on the teleprompter?
Yeah.
Whether it's Copilot that's surfacing information to a user and reading the teleprompter, or is it an agent that's calling these things, MCP servers and tools and other things, and serving that information up to the user? Basically, it's all going to boil down to how do we control the teleprompter? Because at the end of the day, what's going to be shown to the user is going to be how we control what's on the teleprompter. Does that make sense?
It's a good analogy as well. I mean, those are the technical questions I had. I've got 3 fun questions as well.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So, as I mentioned, there's a British version and then there is the Australian version. Which one are you going to go for? Are you going to be ignoring the crowd favorite?
Can I choose 2?
Oh yeah, 100%. You
Okay.
can go with more than 2 if you want.
So I'm gonna span both. I'm gonna go with the crocodile,
Okay.
and then what's the British?
British version would be like caramel, or I guess.
Let's go with the caramel. Let's go with the caramel.
Yeah, these are
I'll
like
wash my crocodile down with my caramel.
sure. Well, start with the crocodile. I'm curious to know what you think of the crocodile first as
Okay.
well.
And in fact, can I share with you? So I'm from Alabama.
All
okay?
right.
The other A place, not Australia.
Yeah.
So I'm from Alabama. Oh, this is interesting.
I'll be curious to know what you think.
Okay. As I'm telling the story, I'm going to try the crocodile.
Mm.
Okay. So my UK and Alabama connection, it's not too bad.
Is it chicken?
It's a little dry. Yes. Chicken consistency.
I kept getting it. I mean, because the first time I tried it, I just assumed it would be a bit more gamey. You know how it's like you look at an alligator, or
Yeah, not at all.
you're expecting it to be like a tough meat, but maybe that's the chewy part comes in. But I was just like, chicken. It's not the thing that I was thinking of. Maybe, or I just have too much chicken. Maybe
The Australians know how to season their
crocodile.
their crocodile.
Yeah. So
It's interesting.
Sharing a story as well.
It's interesting because I come from Microsoft and I care about labeling things like data. It's interesting. It says on here, made in Australia from at least 95% Australian ingredient.
Oh.
So I guess maybe 5% is the seasoning, or
that probably.
or crocodile source from somewhere else, maybe Florida. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, my connection.
Double story. Yeah.
As I try this now. So are you familiar with the musical artist Ed Sheeran?
Yes.
Okay. Ed Sheeran has only made one hip hop mixtape. I'm not kidding. You can look this up. It is a record called Slumdon Bridge. And this is not made up. And Ed Sheeran made a hip hop mixtape with, I'm not going to buy it, a rapper from Alabama.
Really?
I am not kidding.
Mixtape.
It is a mixtape.
Oh, has he been there? Because mixtape is not like a 2020. 2020s did not have mixtape.
It's an old concept. Yeah. Hip hop artists used to make mixtape and sell them out of their trunks before they got popular, right? Sorry, this is actually really chewy and really good. This is
This is British childhood in a rapper.
Oh my gosh. Milk chocolate coated caramel wafer biscuit. Of course it's a biscuit. So he evidently was a fan of this rapper. His name is Yellow Wolf, YELAWOLF. And he wanted to make a mixtape that kind of tapped into the like Alabama Southern roots thing that he has.
Yeah.
And it's really, really good. And it's like Ed Sheeran mostly singing like the hook. He'll sing a couple verses and he'll even like rap a couple lines. But it's predominantly him singing, and then the rapper Yellow Wolf from Alabama, Gadsden, Alabama specifically. Shout out to Gadsden. Yeah, so that's my British Alabama connection.
Fair. Oh, and kind of is a good segue to my first question as well. Then for the fun question, what do you spend time on when you're not trying to solve the data security problems of the world?
Oh man, when I'm not trying to solve the data security challenge, AI security. No. Oh, that's a great question. I do DJ on the side, predominantly like weddings.
Oh yeah.
So I do that on the side, and then also too, I have 3 children.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of the challenges that I'm trying to solve is how do they become productive humans that can deal with the nuances of a crazy world they're growing up in.
Yeah.
And trying just to navigate, life.
Yeah.
So that is probably one of the big things. Yeah.
That's a good segue to my second question as well. In that case,
Oh, here we go. Take it
What is,
right.
yeah, go for it. What is something that you're proud of that is not on your social media?
Oh, not proud of this on my social media. Oh man. Oh gosh, if my kids are gonna watch this later, sorry, my kids. Like, I'm really proud of my kids.
If you ever watch this,
My greatest achievement in life is them and everything they've done and will do. Honestly, oh man, I gotta think about it. I will say this: my oldest, he plays hockey, so I'll keep it on my kids thing. Sorry, oldest plays hockey. Growing up in Alabama, I did not play.
yeah.
For obvious reasons. And there's not a lot of ice in Alabama. I'll
Okay,
tell you
I was
that,
going to say
okay?
that because you kind of need some ice for it to be a thing.
But there is now, and it's a growing sport even in the South because now the NHL has expanded to Florida,
Oh, right. Okay.
Tennessee, and other places.
Florida as well. So
Yeah.
I'll get
They have two NHL teams in Florida now, and so it's quite the mecca, at least in the South, for hockey. Anyway, long story short, my oldest, he plays, and so I wanted to be able to hang with him, so to speak, and so I picked up playing, and I now actually play on a team.
Oh, right.
Now, granted, it's not high level play, but it is a team nonetheless. I can skate backwards, I can make a pass, just normal stuff.
Oh, wow.
So that's an achievement that I'm a little proud of.
That's a good one.
Picked up a new thing, much like our folks, trying to get into AI security or
Yeah.
enhance their new craft of AI security. I think it's like a thing I'm proud of because
Awesome.
learning something I didn't know.
Yeah, wow. It's a good skill as well. It's really hard to pick up new things when you're older as well. As much as you should read about it, I definitely experience it these days. Like I've had to learn that new language, and it's like
Oh,
I've
yeah.
had to learn French is like the brain just stops working after a while.
It's tough. It's tough.
I mean, you're doing the physical part as well. Final question is what's your favorite cuisine or restaurant? You can share.
Oh, wow. Okay. My favorite cuisine or restaurant? Man, I would have to say, so there's two things that are regional to Alabama. I just had this conversation yesterday. It's two things. White sauce on barbecue.
Okay.
So barbecue in the South is a thing.
Yeah.
And so Alabama kind of adapts from Tennessee and some other places, the Carolinas. But we have a white sauce. So in North Carolina, they put this like yellow vinegar-based sauce on their barbecue.
Right.
In other places, it's, the red sauce, traditional barbecue sauce, that type of thing. So in Alabama, they have a white sauce. It's literally like white with peppers in it and stuff like that.
Okay.
It's like a vinegar-based sauce that we put on our barbecue.
Right.
Amazing. Put it on chicken, put it on barbecue, any kind. And that would be one thing. And then there's also a burger joint that is local to Alabama. So think, we're in California, In-N-Out.
Yeah.
There is a regional burger chain in Alabama called Milo's.
Milo's.
It's also famous for its sweet tea, which is a regional delicacy. So so the sweet tea, white sauce, and a Milo's burger with their particular Milo sauce on it. That's where it's at.
I need to go to Alabama now.
That's where it's at.
Dude, this is great.
Super healthy.
Yeah. That's all the questions I had. Where can people know more about Atlas, Veronis, and connect with you guys as well?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. So nevertheless, I think maybe I'll drop it in the
I'll drop
description or something to that effect. That's on a personal level if you want to connect there. Also to Veronis.com.
Yeah.
You will see, because we just announced Veronis Atlas not too long ago. That's on there. And also too, if you hit our blog, I just wrote a blog about applying zero trust to MCP servers.
Oh, right.
MCP environments. So nevertheless, you can check that out. Should be a good read, I hope. Yeah, those would be my three.
Awesome. No, thank you so much for doing this. And thank you everyone for tuning in as well, man.
Yeah,
Thank
you.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening or watching this episode of Cloud Security Podcast. This was brought to you by TechRiot.io. If you are enjoying episodes on cloud security, you can find more episodes like these on cloudsecuritypodcast.tv, our website, or on social media platforms like YouTube, LinkedIn, and Apple Spotify. In case you are interested in learning about AI security as well, do check out our sister podcast called AI Security Podcast, which is available on YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple as well, where we talk to other CISOs and practitioners about what's the latest in the world of AI security. Finally, if you're after a newsletter, it just gives you top news and insight from all the experts we talk to at Cloud Security Podcast. You can check that out on cloudsecurity.newsletter.com. I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.